Hey guys, kinggath here with another tutorial in the Builder's Toolkit series. So in this tutorial, I want to go over how you spawn things that your settlers can interact with, things like lights, anything that isn't just a static object that doesn't move and doesn't do anything. One of the things I mentioned in the first video was that I'm going to kind of skip around, and in this case, I'm skipping the normal second tutorial. Which covers the building stages and upgrades, because the actual workflow in the creation kit is identical to that first video. So the second tutorial is really more an informational thing. It gives you kind of some tips. So like I mentioned in the first video, this series is meant to be kind of a companion series to the PDF. So you're still going to want to read through those because they have a lot of valuable information as far to help you out. But the actual workflow, I'm going to give you all of that information in the video format so you can see, basically, so you'll be able to, as you're reading through the PDFs, have a visual reference in your head of what exactly it is that those PDFs are talking about. So it makes most sense to skip to what's labeled as tutorial number 4. Number 1 is the CK101, which I'll eventually do a video, though there are plenty of those already out there on YouTube. Number 2 was the first one I did, which is creating your first building. Number 3 we're skipping because it's the same type of stuff that you do in the tutorial I already did a video on. So now we're on what's considered tutorial 4, which is called Furniture, Clutter, Lights, and More. So we're going to start out by opening up our old plugin file that we worked on. Now, at the beginning of the last tutorial, I explained if you're new to modding, all you have to do after you've created your ESP file is double-click it and hit Set as Active File, and it will automatically load the rest of the data you need. You can see over here on the right under Parent Masters, that data will get loaded automatically. So we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to wait for this. And I'm going to snip here and come back after it's loaded, because this can take several minutes for all of that data to load in the background. Alright, so the creation kit has loaded our ESP file. Now we're going to go back into the building stage. Now, depending on where you're at, if you kept working after that first tutorial, you may need to bring in your building into the center here. You're going to want to make sure that your building model is at 0, 0, 0 and 0, 0, 0 on all of the position and rotation, which you can find that by double-clicking your model, making sure you're on the 3D data tab. Make sure all of those are 0. If they're not, just go ahead and erase what's there and type in 0. And that'll make the next step that we're about to do much, much easier. So I already placed a few items, but I'm going to go ahead and delete these so that I can just show you guys once again exactly what we're going to be doing. So the idea here in this step is that any items that are that are not just like a simple part of the building frame, we place those separately for 2 reasons. One is it makes this model more reusable so that you can create different variations of the furniture placement and everything and make more use of this model. But also because some of the items, such as furniture where NPCs need to interact, or lights, basically if you look under this world objects category, anything here that isn't a static. In fact, you can even place, later on, you can get more advanced, you can even place things like NPCs and weapons and any type of object like that. So anything that's not a static type, you need to place in this method I'm going to show you. So the first half of the method is very simple, and it works exactly the same as what worked when we were building this model of just dragging pieces you want. So let's start out by just giving this guy a bed, because that's pretty important. So we're going to search for bed, and then we're going to find a bed we like. So let's try this. Okay, that's a match on the floor. We're not a big fan of that. Let's try, how about this hospital bed? Nope, oops, wrong one. Hospital bed. Oh, I did grab the hospital. Oh, okay, that's an Institute hospital bed. We don't want that guy. We want something a little crummier looking. Let's see here. Military cot. No, it's just a mattress again. What do we got here? Let's go with metal lay. Here we go. Good crappy mattress. If you guys haven't realized, the aesthetic I love is the dingy, roof-holey, shack-like look. So that's kind of where I go with it. But you guys are welcome, obviously, to use whatever visual style you like. Okay, so what you want to do is, once you've dragged your furniture in here, first of all, you'll notice by dragging on the floor, onto the floor of our building, the item automatically aligns itself really nicely, which is going to be very convenient for this step. If for some reason it doesn't align itself perfectly, you usually just hold down the Z key, and you can kind of find a good spot for it. But for the most part, dragging on there should line it up perfectly with the floor. The next thing we want to do is push M to bring up our markers. Now you'll see that there's a blue man now laying on the bed, and that represents where your NPC will be. But the more important part of that marker are these yellow and blue circles. when you lay down your furniture, you need to make sure that these yellow and blue circles are not blocked by anything. That's showing you where the NPC has to be able to stand in order to activate that piece of furniture. So if for some reason that were like right here, the NPC would never actually be able to use this bed. So find those yellow and blue circles and keep those in mind when you're positioning your things. So we're going to go ahead and just place our bed here. And then why don't we give this guy a light as well? So we're going to go into, I'm going to do just the bare minimum of things just to show you guys, because it's important that you guys just see the method and not necessarily, you don't need me to see the actual decorations. Like that's not what's important here. And the reason I want to show you a light as well is because the lights act a little bit differently. So we're going to go down to light here. And actually, you know what? I'm going to back up one step. There's something that I didn't do when I first built Sim Settlements, and I found out that there's an advantage to doing this extra step here. So right now, this NPC Bed Metal Laser one, this is what's called a vanilla item. This is something that came with Fallout 4. And while we can totally use those, and that's what I did in the initial version of Sim Settlements, the problem is that if someone were to uninstall the mod without running the self-destruct sequence that I've added to the holotape, any of these vanilla objects would get left behind, and then the player would have to install, like, scrap everything or something in order to get rid of them. So a way we can avoid that and make your add-on pack just a smoother. I know a lot of people don't like the idea, like, why would you support uninstalling? Well, it's just a good courtesy. Like, you don't want to annoy. If for some reason the player decides to uninstall your stuff, you shouldn't annoy them by leaving remnants behind. So it's best to clean up after yourself. Now, the way to make it so that it cleans itself up is to turn this item into something that's inside of your ESP file. So how do we do that? Well, it's actually really, really easy. All we have to do is we're going to find the item we just used. So you can double click on it to get the exact name. This NPC Bed Metal Lay 01, so that's this guy right here. All we have to do is hit duplicate, and then we're going to select it and then click again, and it should bring up an interface so that we can rename it. And we're going to go ahead and add our prefix that we've been adding to things. Now I don't remember what exactly I used in the first one, but I'll just use kgsim tut underscore, and then get rid of this copy stuff. And it doesn't actually matter what it's named. The point is, by duplicating it, it creates a copy of it in your ESP file. And then we'll say no, because we already created the duplicate, but yes, we do want to rename it. So now we've got our copy. So that's all you have to do for that. Now, in the next step, after we lay this light down and everything, I'll show you why we created this duplicate and how that ends up working. So just know that after you've placed when you've placed the things you want to use, it's best to create a copy of them inside your ESP file. Now, if you decide to go back, if you decide to add multiple homes in your add-on pack and you want to use this same bed, you don't have to keep duplicating it once for each, but you just want to make sure that there's a separate duplicated copy inside of your ESP file. All right, so now let's go down to lights. Now, lights are the exception to this rule, and there's actually a few of these under activator as well, but lighting are a special type that I have to do a bunch of extra steps to get working so that they're actually powered by the plot and not just powered by themselves. So if you want your lights, to work with the electricity system that's built into Sim Settlements, you're going to want to limit yourself to lights that are under, if you search for kgsim under the lights, or if you go to activator, you can do kgsim, probably asterisk, and then powered. And then all of these objects are also configured so that they will work with the power system. You're welcome to use items that I haven't configured like that. Just know that they will always be powered. Now, when you're using these kgsim items, you don't actually have to duplicate them because they're already part of Sim Settlements, so they'll get deleted automatically if someone were to decide to uninstall the mod. You only need to worry about creating duplicates for vanilla objects, but these items that are part of Sim Settlements, you don't have to duplicate them. So we're going to go into our light again. We know we want to use these kgsim lights so that they will successfully turn on and off when the plot loses power or gains power. So we're going to go ahead and bring in a light. Now, before we do this, I want to show you guys a little cool trick in the creation kit. A lot of you probably ran into this when you first launched the creation kit. You probably saw something like this. All of your objects were pitch black. And so what that is by either clicking on this icon up here, or if you're clicked in the render window, you can, I can't remember the key. Okay, well, we're going to just use this because I don't have the key handy. Oh, it's A. Thank you. So if you push A, you can toggle what's called the ambient lights. And ambient lights are basically kind of like, there's just a generic light all around to kind of keep things visible without you having to go manually place specific lights. But that's not great to have on when we're trying to see what lights would look like if, say, for example, you loaded your game up with darker nights turned on. So which is a mod. If you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. It's a very cool mod. It makes it so that there's less ambient light in the game itself, so that you actually have to light up things, and then things like your Pip-Boy light become kind of a game mechanic, because otherwise you can't see anything. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just drag in one of these lights into the scene, and you'll notice that it actually lights things up, because this is showing you exactly how this light would affect the scene. So we're gonna just place this simple hanging light bulb here. And we're gonna get, you can notice that there's that little yellow crosshair there. That's showing, that's how you can use, that's what you can use to align the base of the light, so you know that it's right up to the edge of that ceiling. And now you'll see that the light actually lights things up, and if we slide it over here, it's lighting. You're actually seeing how the light would affect the game. Obviously, it's not a perfect representation, because the game itself does have some amount of ambient light. It's nothing like this. It's nothing like this really bleached out, awful look, but it does have some amount of ambient light. So this preview here doesn't show you exactly how it will look in game, but it shows you a lot closer than if you have the lights turned on. So generally when you're placing lights, turn this icon off here by either clicking it or pushing the letter A while you're in this window. So we're gonna just stick with that. That's enough light that it comfortably lights up that little house. And so now you've got a couple examples. So when I can show you the next half of this. Okay, so for the second half of placing objects, and I'm going to save here in case we have a little crash, the second half involves your building plan, which you created in the first tutorial. So if we go into our miscellaneous items here under items, so items, misc item, we're going to look for our building plan, which we're using this tutorial house 01. And then you're going to open up the script properties by double clicking it. Now, one thing I want to point out here is because this screen has actually changed since I made the last tutorial. I'm fairly certain, and it's definitely changed since I created the PDFs. Don't worry if extra fields start appearing here. As I develop more of the mod and expand the framework, I'm going to add more features, but I will always make it backwards compatible. So the things I'm teaching you now and the stuff that exists now should continue to work throughout the life cycle of Sim Settlements. So if what we're looking for here, and I'm going to delete these because I just had created these earlier as a test to make sure that I remembered what I was doing, because it's been so long since I built the original models. The field that we're going to be adding things like lights and beds and things is called the stage item spawns. And what this is these items are manually placed by Sim Settlements after the plot reaches a particular stage. So what we'll do is we'll double click this. And then this screen, this is a list, and it's very similar to what we had for the stage models here. So essentially, we're going to be adding each of the items we want to be able to spawn into this list. So let's go ahead and hit add to start the first one. And this, just like this other screen, you may in the future see new things added here, but you only need to worry about these fields that I'm going to go over with you. The rest of them are more advanced things, which you'll learn about eventually. So for starters, I'm going to just show you the bare minimum number of fields that you're going to want to fill out. The other thing to note about this screen is you see this struct variables. Structure is a special type of object that that modders can add via code. Now, the big problem with them is that for some reason the creation kit will randomize the order these are in each time you load the creation kit. It's a real pain, and it's unfortunate because it slows down your workflow a little bit, but I just want to point that out because it's nothing to worry about. All of this stuff will still function. You're just looking to make sure that the fields I show you how to fill out, just fill them out based on the name. Don't worry about this order here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is set up the form to spawn. This is telling the game we want this particular object to be created. So we're going to start out with our bed. So we double click on that, and then we're going to hit edit base to find out what type it is. So in this case, it's a furniture. Now, you don't actually have to hit edit base every time. You'll start to learn what all the different parts are so that you can memorize it. But if you're not sure, just clicking that edit base and look to the upper left-hand corner, and that'll tell you where you can find that form. So we're going to go to furniture, which we can just type the first letter to find it. Furniture, and then we're going to filter, and we're going to start typing in this name here. So NPC bed metal, that should be enough. And now, because we created that duplicate, we can look for our duplicate here. So, and that is part of the reason we type in that that prefix there is because it makes it a lot easier to find. And you'll see that I've been doing this tutorial multiple times before I recorded to make sure that I had all the information down. So we're going to just select one of these. And now that is set up so that that object is going to be spawned. Now we need to tell it when we want it to be spawned. So I'm going to hit OK here so I can show you guys something. If you remember in the first tutorial, we had to figure out what these level stops were. And to do that, we looked at our stage models. And these numbers right here are the stage we're looking for. So in this case, this house right here, when it's going to spawn, or in our current setup, is stage 1. Now, one thing to note, I'm showing you guys how to lay out this furniture now, but you should not do this step, the furniture and lights and everything, until all of your stage models are done. Otherwise, you're going to have to come back in here and edit the stage number on all these, and it'll just be a big pain in the butt. So you should make sure you've gone through the first 2 tutorials and done built out all of the models, built your construction objects, built your levels, and have these models all set in stone. So that way, you don't have to do a bunch of extra work later. So we're just gonna pretend that this model is done for the sake of teaching you guys, because I just want to show you how this stage item spawns work. All right, so we know now that this house that we want right here, we want these items to appear when this house appears. So when this model appears, we want these guys to appear. And this model is our tutorial house level 1, which is right here, stage number 1. So we're gonna go back into our object here. Stage item spawns, and then we double click this entry. This big long line of nonsense represents the object that we're entering. And we're going to go find the stage num. So I stage num here. We'll double click that and we'll type in 1. Whoop, I just hit F1 by mistake. My bad. Hit the number 1. Come on. I keep hitting the F keys. Come on. I gotta get this keyboard aligned better. All right, there we go. So you hit the number 1 for our stage. Okay, the next thing we want to do is under spawn name, you're just going to type in something unique. It can be anything at all, it doesn't matter, just a string with no spaces. And essentially it has to be unique among all of the items that you end up creating for this object. So we're going to so this is our first one. We'll just call this bed stage 1. That'll keep it nice and simple. And now what we need to do is enter in the coordinates of where this object is. Now, because we set all of this to 0 for this, now this is the model of the house. Since we set it to 0, we can actually just use the exact coordinates in the cell that that the item is now, because the SimSettlements does the calculations to figure out where is this object, where's the building model relative to, say, our bed. Now, by using 0, 0, 0, we can just enter these in exactly. If for some reason this object, the house model, was offset, we would have to do the math and say, what is the difference between this X and this X, and that would be a giant pain in the butt. So this is why you want to always have your models sitting at 0, 0, 0, with rotation 0, 0, 0, because it just makes this furniture placement super simple. It's just a matter of copy pasting these values. So we're going to click in here, hit Control A to select it all, Control C to copy it, and then we're looking for the offset. I said we want to calculate the difference, that is referred to as an offset. So we'll double click there and just paste it in. And then we just do the same thing for our Y value, and then our Z value. And then if any of these rotations were not 0 on your furniture, now you notice this NPC bed metal lay, you get that by double clicking on it. I had just left it open from before and slid it across. And since our rotations are all 0, we can leave all those fields alone. So literally you can do this. In fact, if for some reason you had placed the object and it ended up at the same spot, if these were all 0s, you could literally just check in the form to spawn, enter in the stage number and the spawn name. And those are the 3 fields you absolutely need. The rest are just positioning information, and then some of this other stuff will get used later on. So for the most part, you're going to fill out form to spawn, the stage number you want it to spawn at, the name of this spawn that has to be unique, and then you're going to fill in your coordinates, your X, Y, and Z. And often you'll also find you're filling out the Z and the rotation, but the rest of those you end up, will frequently just leave blank. And then you push OK. So now SimSettlements knows when this model of house appears, when stage 1 appears, it's also going to create this bed and then position it relative to this house, because you got to think whenever the player could place this plot anywhere in the game, so the coordinates of this plot won't always be 0, 0, but SimSettlements handles the math for you since you entered in these coordinates for it, and it just takes wherever the plot is It takes its X position and subtracts 124. It takes its Y position and subtracts 55. So it does all that for you. All you have to worry about is how this is copy pasting these numbers to match what's in the creation kit. It makes it real easy to do. So it might be complicated to understand exactly what's going on mathematically. You don't have to worry about that. Just know that you want your house at 0, 0, 0 all across the board. And you want to just copy, I keep clicking on the wrong thing, and you just want to copy and paste these values into your item spawn entries. So now we're going to do the same thing for the light. So we're going to go to add here. We're going to go to form to spawn. We know that this is a light. And then we're going to filter on, let's see, powered light hanging. And now because we're using an item that already had the KG sim in it, we don't have to worry about grabbing the duplicate. We can just grab this exact item. And then we're going to give it, we know we also want this to spawn on stage 1. For spawn name, we'll call it hanging light stage 1. And again, it doesn't matter. You could just do the word light. It would be totally fine as long as it's something unique. And then we'll copy and paste our X, Y, and Z here. And just like the bed, we didn't rotate it at all, so we don't have to worry about those. And we hit OK here. And now we've got 2 entries. So now when the house reaches stage 1, it's going to create a bed and then create this little light. Now, one thing that, one of the other reasons that you'd want to go through the documents and not just following this video is that there's a lot more detailed information about this particular step, as far as that there are little differences and things you should know about depending on the type of plot you're making. For example, for the commercial plots, you have to use these specific furniture markers. For agricultural, you have to use these specific crops, and all of that stuff is covered in there. But I just want to show you the workflow, because the workflow is always the same, but some of the specifics of how you handle the items you're choosing to lay out does change. And that you're going to want to refer to the document Furniture Clutter, Lights, and More inside of the Builder's Toolkit. So okay, so now I've showed you that. We just press OK. We're going to save again. And that's it. We now have our furniture and light set up, and this will spawn in game. And I'm going to go ahead and show that to you guys now. All right, so now we're in the game. I'm in workshop mode. I'm going to go ahead and throw down a residential plot. Now, one thing that has changed since I made the last video is that there's now a delay in the building materials appearing, and we're going to want to wait for that to finish. Otherwise, when we do our test building plan, it can end up getting kind of screwy. One thing you can do to speed up your testing is in your tests, in the save you're using to test out your add-on pack, go into the zoning laws and set this delay building materials. If you click it twice, it should go to none. And that way the building materials will appear immediately. So I'm going to show you guys that works. Let's just destroy this guy. And of course we got to wait for the stuff to disappear, which in the patch that will be coming out either tonight or tomorrow, that there is an option to turn off that demolition as well, which can speed up testing. So we create that, and then in just a second here, the building materials will appear. So they appear much faster, and it'll make testing easier. Okay, so now we're going to use the exact same command we used before, which was you bring up the console, click on the utility pole of your plot, and then we're going to type in, first you do help, and then part of the name of your building plan, and then the number 4 to find the form ID. And then we do CF, which stands for call function, test building plan. And then we do the form ID we want. And then the stage. Now in this case, I'm going to skip right to stage 1 so that you guys can see it real quickly, so we don't have to wait that 60 seconds. And then you exit out of console. Our model appears, and then it spawns the light and the bed. So there we go. So that's all there is to that. You just place your items just like you did before to create your statics, but instead of creating that static collection, you instead enter the coordinates and model for each one under the stage item spawns. All right, guys, I would highly recommend you check out the document that goes with this. There's a lot more little details along with this, especially for specific things such as the commercial and agricultural plots. So depending on what you're building would change what you're doing. And don't mind that stuff just flickering in and out. That is because we used the test building stage and skipped stages. Basically, some settlements needed a second to catch up to that. Okay, guys, keep me posted on how I'm doing with these tutorials. I'm going to try and get them out a little more frequently now. I was away for a week and I didn't have access to all of my recording equipment, so we didn't get any last week. But I'm hoping to do at least one of these tutorials every week, maybe more frequently depending on how things go. Okay, guys, enjoy the mod and take care.